Oh, welcome back, everyone. This is our third podcast that we've done here at Sheehan Financial. We don't have a formal name as yet, but hopefully there's some content in there that you get something out of that outweighs our lack of creativity on that front. For today, we've got Sam Squire. Sam's been working with us here at Sheehan Financial for about 2 years now, or just over, I think it is. How's it all going? How's your weekend?
Yeah, good, good. Managed to get through Mother's Day and the missus' birthday,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, got out of doing laundry and other chores, just digging holes in the garden.
And why didn't you dig? Why didn't you dig the rose bushes out totally?
Laziness, partially, I suppose. I'd run out of energy at a certain point on the weekend when you got a little one running around.
I guess there's only so much you want to do on the weekend when away from work. So you're married to Hannah, one young daughter, Freya. How's that all going?
Yeah, fantastically. It's all good fun. Incredibly tiring,
Yep.
but it's an exciting part of life. Definitely the most fun I've had so far. So yeah, looking forward to when the next one comes along as well.
Heavens
future
above.
stuff.
Yeah. So Sam here is our expert in risk insurance, which basically is health, life, income, those type of covers. We decided that was going to be a pretty tough podcast, if I'm honest. So we're going to have a look at some of Sam's background because, interestingly enough, he was a skipper of a super yacht back in the day. So how'd you end up being skipper of a super yacht, Sam?
Well, to be honest, most of the ones I skippered were not probably what you would classify. Well, you might classify it as a super yacht, but yeah, they were a bit smaller, those ones. The larger ones I worked on as deck crew. It's a bit of a family thing, you
Right.
know. My dad was in it for 50 years before I got into
Right.
it, and my mother and father met in the industry, and their mum's siblings and my siblings have all been in it as well. So it's yeah, it's just kind of a family tradition, I guess. Go through yachting and find your way after.
And how long were you doing that?
I would have been almost 12 years,
Right.
bit of on and off, lots of travel, living out of
Started
different
pretty young,
places.
I guess, so.
Yeah, yeah. First boat I worked on, I would have been 15
Shoots.
with my father. Um, Decided I didn't want to work with my father, so went back to school. And then, yeah, found my way back again a few years later when I realised that England wasn't for me.
Yeah, sure. Now, you sort of get this stereotype of, I mean, if someone can afford a luxury yacht then with a skipper on it, there's a bit of wealth around. So did you see a bit of that in your travels?
Yeah, there's some significant wealth out there. The majority of these boat owners are people you would never have heard of.
Right.
Very, very wealthy businessmen. Um, and yeah, yeah, there's some pretty serious wealth out there. Met some very interesting people. They all have very interesting setups and different families, different dynamics. Some of them are a little looser than others.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's an experience meeting people of that level.
Yep.
And you know, every now and then you meet somebody that is willing to give a bit of an insight as to what they do and how they got there. So it was one of the more interesting parts of it.
And so, I mean, these guys must be worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, right? And
Yeah,
like you say, there'd be different family dynamics, you'd assume, all
yeah.
around there.
There were a few. I would say on the most part they were really good people.
Cool.
Every now and then you come across some problem children, and that tends to happen around that kind of wealth. There was a fellow I worked for probably the longest stint I did on a single boat. Was about 2.5 years. Guy was worth $19 billion.
Jeez.
Canadian family, and sweetest guy.
Yep.
Very, very sweet guy. Had some problems with the kids.
Yep.
You know, they like to party pretty hard. But he was pretty laid back, very kind. Always made time. Seemed to remember all the crew's birthdays off by heart, everything like that.
Shivers.
So yeah, and yeah, there was another fella, American guy, another billionaire. Didn't own a boat, but chartered boats and spent time out in Europe, across the states as well. Actually ended up inviting us back to his house, and we spent Thanksgiving with that guy. But very impressive. 42 years old when I met him.
Jeez.
Worth 4.5
Young.
billion, self-made.
Yep.
And I think somewhere in the region of 9 to 10 billion he's
Well.
worth. But very good family.
And so, I mean, like you say, that sort of wealth, it'd be the odd problem, but everyone's got problems. I don't know, in your opinion, having spent what was it, 15 years in that sort of industry. I mean, pure wealth, does it buy happiness, or what would your reflection be on that, being around that?
Yeah, the happier ones definitely have a more functional family.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
spending a lot more time with their kids. Um, it's the richest guys that we experienced were the ones who didn't have supercars, flash
Yeah,
watches, all that stuff. Didn't own a jet, didn't own a boat.
yeah,
They rented stuff that they wanted to enjoy for a
gotcha.
holiday, and then they carried on. I did actually end up having a conversation with that fellow I was just telling you about, and he asked Hannah and I what our opinion was on purchasing a yacht.
Yep.
He was looking for one at the time. He was looking at I think it was a Fed ship, 65 meter, $250 million, and it was a pretty easy way to just go, yeah, that's a terrible idea. You're gonna spend so much money on it.
Yeah,
I mean, how much time do you spend on boats at the moment? Oh, a week here, a week there,
yeah.
and even the larger boats at $500,000 a week,
Jeez.
significantly less money than what he would have been spending on his own. So pile the maintenance costs on top of that. I think you're talking 5% of the value of the boat every year just for maintenance.
So it's you sort of, you hear sometimes young people, are interested in getting in that line of work. How do you even get into that line of work? I guess as a Kiwi, New Zealander, there wouldn't be so much here, but I guess you go over to Europe and what do you put your name down an agency or something like that, or
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. The classic way of doing it is dock walking. You turn
right?
up in the area, you get your SDCW, your sort of basic safety training at sea. You fly out there, you print off a bunch of CVs, and you walk every dock in the region for the
Right.
next few weeks until somebody gives you the opportunity to do some day work. And if you're lucky, you find a boat that's looking to employ.
Bit of hustle, eh? A bit of hustling out there. So why did you leave? Why did you leave that? I guess that luxury yacht type job.
Um,
How old would you been? 30, 28, 30, something like that?
I would have left in 2017 fully, and I would have been 27 when I left. It's not exactly an environment conducive of managing a good relationship with your partner or having kids or any of that. I mean, I think the crux of it is I've watched too many people get divorced and all that stuff in that industry. Like, it never works. I, there'll be a few out there that manage
Yep.
to make it work while they're doing this. But if you're spending, 6 months at a time away from home, it's
Yep.
just it's not helpful and it's not going to be easy.
And so obviously Hannah's from top of the south, and so you've moved back. Good segue into your job now. 5 years at the corporate and 2 years with us. What exactly is it that you do?
I ask myself that question
Yeah,
sometimes.
same.
So, yeah, essentially, I essentially I look to have a conversation with people and figure out where their heads are at as far as the risks they're exposed to, both physically and financially. A lot of what I do is really just a conversation around, hey, what does your situation look like if you popped your clogs tomorrow, and the family's got to look after themselves.
Yep.
Can they manage the mortgage? Can they pay for the car to stay on the road? Can is your partner working full time? How old are the kids? Can they look after themselves? Are you going to need to pay for other stuff? So yeah, it's just sort of a checkup essentially, and just sort of a bit of a wake up call to some people, just to go, hey, by the way, these things do happen.
Because you've obviously bought a house in the last 12 months, was it? About a year ago?
Yeah, well, about 7 months ago.
yeah.
Yeah,
It started a family. Howard's for 15 months or so.
yeah, yeah.
So,
House and a kid in the same year.
so I guess you've got risks yourself, right? That you're seeing firsthand.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, the priority for us with moving into a house and having a little one and everything is going to be predominantly around making sure the mortgage can get serviced no matter
Yep.
what. So yeah, I sorted out my income protection pretty quickly, especially with the increased need moving in. But it's thinking about the other aspects. It's what access Freya has to things in on our public health system, and what she can access through private health.
So I guess that would be my question. Would be what are the You're in a situation, young guy, started a family, got a mortgage. What are the three things you'd say to someone like yourself that you'd want to get on top of? I guess from a risk insurance perspective that you do.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, like, how do you pay the bills if you stop earning money? That's the number one thing. A lot of people like to assume they can rely on ACC. You
Mm.
know, I mean, we sit behind a desk. What are the chances of us injuring ourselves to the point where you experienced that over the last couple of
Yeah,
years?
yeah,
You
sure.
know, you didn't injure yourself to the point where you couldn't work.
Yep.
So what's really going to put us out is getting too sick.
Mm,
And a lot of people don't like to think about it, but also it's just something that you put to the back of your mind. You go, oh well, ACC will pay me if I can't work, and that's a pretty bold assumption to
yeah.
make. So that's generally how I start the conversation around that. Life cover, it's not for you; it's for your loved ones. So it's not really up to you to value your own life. This is why you sort of have to push for the family to sit down together rather than having one person come in and dictate what the rest of the family is going to have.
Mm,
Because, if the husband's getting life cover, well, I need the wife's opinion on what her life looks like
mm.
in the event that something happens to him and vice versa as well. So that's really, yeah, how the conversation goes is getting everybody's thoughts on it. And then we move from there.
And then, in the corporate, you were doing a lot of the business insurances, I guess, and you're an expert in that field. I'm going to say the same thing to you. I guess there's, key person, shareholder protection, those business sort of insurances. If you're dealing with someone who's self-employed or part of a small company or small, medium, large company, what are the three things there that you'd sort of get them to focus on or think about?
Yeah. Yeah, really. I mean, depending on what the setup is, but like most of these businesses that I'm running into are partnerships.
Yep.
So that's kind of the number one is making sure that that shareholder agreement is drafted up properly and that we've got the adequate cover in there. You need some form of insurance as a financing vehicle. What people don't sort of like to look at is what the reality is of paying somebody out,
Yeah,
say
sure.
$500,000 if you've got $1 million company, with assets and all that stuff, especially building firms with plant and equipment. Um, if you've got partnership, great. But if something happens to that person, the family either needs money, you either end up in business with somebody who you never intended on being in business with, or you need to go and get a loan to pay
Yep.
out this um, the shareholder who
Sure.
passed. And essentially, where's that going to land you if you're trying to run a small business that's already costing you a fortune? It's not a great move.
And we've got that story, haven't we, where we had a company, three shareholders, one of them passed away. Wife turned up. The wife was a florist, which is a fantastic career to have, but not appropriate to this particular business. But suddenly, the florist has as much say in the running of the business as anyone else
Yeah.
because they haven't organised the shareholding correctly, right?
Yeah, I mean that's it. So I mean that's kind of the number one starting place. But of course, not everybody's in a partnership with someone.
Sure. Yep.
So you've got a lot of individuals out there, and that's where this key person cover type situation, where it doesn't necessarily have to be the main shareholder. It could be one of the people that within that business that is essential to that business continuing to run. And what we try and look at doing is trying to cover some of that revenue,
Mm.
making sure that the business has a continued income of some sort in the event that somebody's rendered unable to work who's essential to the business.
I think that's the thing,
So,
right? You invest so much time and energy and effort and take on all that risk to get a business going or run. For you brought up, I was out of action for 8 months with a ruptured Achilles. You'd hate for that to make everything stop, right? Something reasonably, I guess significant health perspective, but you don't be off work for 6 or 8 months and lose everything. So that's where those key person insurances
well, that's
come
it.
important.
And, that's kind of the bit that I guess it surprises me, but it doesn't. But, people are very hot on insuring the truck for the
Yeah,
business,
yeah,
but insuring their key worker who keeps all the money coming in
yeah,
is
sure.
an afterthought.
I guess New Zealand as well, she'll be right, but also, if you're starting your own business, you're sort of you take on a bit of risk yourself. You're
Mm.
comfortable with taking on some risks. I guess it's that we see it, don't we? We see it where key people or the business owner is taken out for a period of time, puts significant pressure on the business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Especially if you don't have anyone you can rely on to continue running things. A lot of people just have to shut up shop for a time while they get better.
Yep.
And that's where that kind of cover really comes into play.
And so, what about some of those larger companies, that might have a number of staff and so on? Is there anything there that they should be looking at?
Yeah, I mean,
There
one of the
is.
big
It's a
ones,
loaded
really.
question.
Yeah, it really is. But I mean, essentially, these days, the cost of living for everyone's just a bit ridiculous.
Mm.
So being able to offer something like group health cover for your
Yeah, sure.
staff is really quite valuable. It doesn't cost the amount you would expect it to cost, but the value to the employees is much higher because buying a retail version of whatever you're giving
Mm.
them as a group scheme is going to be far, far more expensive and for a lot of them far more unrealistic.
Mm.
You think of the average income in New Zealand is about $60,000. And you think about a couple with 3 kids, how are they going to afford
Mm.
effective health cover while dealing with all that?
Mm.
If you're in a group situation, people get automatically accepted. You don't have to run everybody through health questionnaires and go back through everybody's health history. They get signed on, and essentially, you can find people that have never been able to get private health
Mm.
cover suddenly have it.
It's a great retention tool, right?
It's excellent, yeah. Especially when you consider that you can't pick and choose who you put the cover on within the company, so it's got to be unbiased.
Mm.
But what you can do is go, right, well, you've stayed with us for 2 years.
Mm.
Now you've hit this 2-year period. We're going to add you to the company plan.
Mm.
And it is a huge retention tool.
Fantastic. And we've seen that price. I mean, I get these calls all the time. The price of that private healthcare has gone through the roof. There's obviously something going on in the public system. So, we have seen that 20, 30, 50% price increases over the last couple of years in some of that private health. So I guess, that once again, that's an area where there's a number of techniques you can use to manage the bigger excesses, winding back off specialists and tests and just doing hospitalization and surgical sort of covers. There's ways of managing that, right? And there's ways of managing that going forward.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A good rule of thumb that I use is not to get too boring. But yeah, average claim on health insurance is once every 5 to 7 years. Calculate it pessimistically. You can do it yourself with your own cover. If you get a quote to increase your cover from $1,000 to $2,000, you essentially go, well, am I going to make $1,000 worth of savings over the next 5
Yeah.
years? If you are, then theoretically you can put that money aside and it'll pay for itself.
Sweet. We'll get back to super yachts soon. But
Yeah.
until then, I mean, we get other thing that comes up from time to time is, insurers pretty tough to deal with and so on. So I've been doing this almost 20 years, I guess. But so even in our office, we've got $2 or $3 million worth of claims every year going through, and life, health, and income sorts of insurances. And generally, we use good companies, so that pay. But what's your experience been like over the last 7 or 8 years that you've been doing this side of things in the corporate and here?
Yeah, the experience is essentially much the same. You're dealing with real people every day. It's some lower demands being in the independent side, just because I don't have to take on everything myself.
Yep.
But it's all the same stuff. You're talking to real people. You're dealing with claims. It's it's all quite morbid.
Mm.
But
How do you get through all that out of interest? That's one thing that comes up, right? Sometimes you talk about death and illness and serious injury and so on.
yeah, getting through it. The initial conversation is just being straightforward and head on with people. When they're going through it, that's where you have to be a bit softer. You have to be a bit more empathetic with people. Yeah. We're there to run them through the claims and help them with this stuff. We're not the insurance company, so we want to make sure that they're not sitting on hold, waiting around for somebody to answer the phone once, they've already dealt with the loss of a family member or whatever. It's, it becomes very real very fast when you're dealing with claims.
Well, I think that's enough sort of life, health, and income insurances. But last thing before you get back to work, mate, doing what you do, why would someone contact you? Why wouldn't they just go on the internet or ring up, the branch down the road or so on? Why would they use you?
I suppose the main factor is that I'm not really here to sell anything. I'm here to educate. If you have questions, if you
He's
just
on a
want to find
salary,
out
by the
about
way.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, you're making me sweat now. But yeah, if you want to find out about this stuff and you want to talk to somebody who's genuinely just giving you some advice, there's no obligation to anything I do. I don't charge out fees for what I do.
Yeah,
So
independent.
yeah, and we're independent. We're not partial to any particular insurer. It's just give you a good overview of what you should be thinking about having, essentially. We're not here to force anything down your throat.
Oh, no, good one. Oh, well, thanks for that. And if you want to have a chat with Sam about those sorts of things, you'll get all the information off the website. Look them up. But aside from that, I think that's enough on that side of things for today. So we'll call it a day and let Sam get back to work and earn that salary. Cheers, guys.
Awesome.